some nice VFR cross-country to the Midwest, followed by a challenging approach in low IFR.
About 500 to go.
And a peek into how it gets done, the Dan Seeth episode. It's another episode of Life in the Fast Lane. I'm John Weisswasser, pilot and drummer for Eaglemania. Follow me as I explore the practical use of general aviation while I travel the country with the world's greatest tribute to the Eagles. This is Life in the Fast Lane. This trip takes Eaglemania from Caldwell, New Jersey to Kalamazoo, Michigan for a Saturday evening show at the State Theater. It will be our first time in that theater, and I need to be there for a 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time sound check. The next day, I need to be at the Lamp Theater in Irwin, Pennsylvania, one of our regular spots, which you can check out in episode 2. I need to be there at 5:30 in the afternoon as well. Using 4Flight's trip planner, Kalamazoo Battle Creek International was the easy first choice, and it's about 5 minutes from the venue. For the Lamp, I always use Latrobe. I could use Allegheny, but Latrobe is slightly closer and they have CAA fuel. It's about a 30-minute drive from the theater. The plan was to fly from Caldwell, New Jersey, direct to Kalamazoo, Michigan on Saturday morning, play the State, then fly from Kalamazoo to Latrobe on Sunday morning, play the Lamp, and then return to Caldwell Monday morning. Planning this all out, I knew I could make the 514-mile trip to Kalamazoo in 1 2.5-hour leg, especially if the weather was good. I allocated about 12 hours of drive time, which meant I had to make a fail-safe decision the night before. The trip from Kalamazoo to Latrobe was little over an hour, but the drive time was 6 hours and similarly would require a decision the night before. Returning to Caldwell, the hour or so trip was one that I had done many times. I started following the outlook for the trip midweek, the week before. It became clear that I wasn't going to have any problems until Monday morning when the visibilities and ceilings in New Jersey in particular would be adversely affected by a coastal low. I made a decision the night before that the trip was going to be doable, but with the caveat that we may not get back on time on Monday. As I started planning, I noticed that all the runways save for one were NOTAM closed at Kalamazoo. So I started briefing the morning of for a 9 a.m. departure. METARs were all VFR, and they were forecast to stay that way all day at both ends with winds that were favorable for the only available runway at Kalamazoo. This was all due to a large high-pressure system over southeastern Canada, which made it a little breezy on the east coast, but nothing but fair over Michigan. The icing and turbulence forecasts were each completely benign, so I went ahead and filed the 4-flight expected route for a 9 a.m. departure at flight level 280 and headed out to the airport.
Meridian 9 Delta Alpha, go ahead with the repack.
Okay, 9 Delta Alpha is cleared to Kalamazoo via left turn to a heading of 180 radar vectors, Cote Lake, Quebec 436 Rake, Quebec 430 Barris, Flint direct, 2000, flight level 280 at 10 minutes, 119.2, squawk on release, 9 Delta Alpha.
Meridian 9 Delta Alpha after Rake, it's Q438, and the rest is correct.
Correct. Couldn't read my own handwriting. After Rake, Q438 to Barry's, Flint direct, 9 Delta Alpha.
Thank you. November 9 Delta Alpha, read back correct. Advise when you're ready to taxi at the current Avis.
We'll code 9 Delta Alpha.
So the good news is that for the difficult leg, the Monday morning low IMC leg, the audio captured perfectly. The other two trips had many segments of audio disrupted by what I'm sure is a bad cable, which I've since replaced. I've tried my best to filter out the high hum and the harmonics associated with it, but it's far from perfect, and I apologize for the quality.
Runway heading up to 2000. Pitching for the bar. Okay, departure 9 Delta Alpha. Okay, now I want you to push the button that says Tom 2, Mike 2. Okay, departure, good morning, Meridian 929 Delta Alpha is 1,100, climb to 2,000, runway heading.
929 Delta Alpha, New York, identify me, case 6,000.
6,000, 9 Delta Alpha. Alright, so we're at our cruising altitude. I originally filed for flight level 280, but for whatever reason they've given me 60, and I'm just going to stay with it. A nice smooth ride. and we're making really good time, so there's no reason to put hairs and get up to 280. But
good morning, flight check 55330.
Our current burn, and with the winds aloft, we should be there in an hour and 45 minutes. And with 460 pounds of fuel, which is great. We only have 30 knots on the nose. And the weather there is variable at 10 miles and clear. So it's a perfect day for flying. With me up front is Dan Seeth.
Hello.
Dan's our front of house guy, very camera shy. He's our front of house guy, our manager, our production manager, just general all around boss.
That's right.
And an aviation enthusiast. He grew up in a family with a Mooney. His dad flies a Mooney, and he's thinking about getting his license. So this is great for you.
This is great for me. Very comfortable.
Dan here is flying the flight director and doing an amazing job. Doesn't take much, right? It's a big airplane, but you could just fly it with your fingers.
Wants to fly too, which is
Number 902 Tango, contact New York Center 134.8. Number 9 Delta Alpha, 8 miles from Otsego, cross Otsego at or above 3,000, cleared RNAV runway 17 approach.
Okay, Otsego at or above 3,000, clear for the approach 9 Delta. Okay, so land 17 9 Delta. So, stop here, and I'm waiting for 3 beam lights, which means that all 3 are down, which we have, 10 degrees of flap, manual, alright, and we're below 20 degrees of flap, so I'll add a second notch of flap, double check our power, good, and now the first time I go through the landing checklist, manual, light, hot, flap, 3 in the green, 0 pressure in the cabin. We don't want to land with a pressurized cabin. Right? Last notch of flap. Okay, final check. Manual light, 3 full flaps, 3 green. Okay, so over the numbers, I just drop the throttle and start dialing in the trim.
This was our first time into the State Theater in Kalamazoo, and there's not a lot that gets us more excited to be somewhere than the prospect of introducing Eaglemania in a new region to an enthusiastic crowd. Shannon DeVries is the manager.
We're an atmospheric theater. There's not very many of them left in the world. We were built originally by John Everson. It was a movie theater, started as a vaudeville house and then a movie palace for quite a while. Our current ownership bought the theater in '85.
We knew from the sales leading up to the show that it would be well attended. And I think what took us all by surprise was how majestic this theater was. And I can't recall playing in a space that was as ornate, well-maintained, and period perfect as this one.
Goo Goo Dolls was here last week. We were really excited about that. We've done comedy with many people. Nick Offerman will be here next week with Parks and Rec is what he's most known for. And Ellen's been here in the past, and Tim Allen taped his special here back in the day when he was first starting. So.
Okay, so basically, we snuck out in the crowd because this is the first time we play in this room, and nobody knows who we are.
Right.
So we just kind of walked out into the lobby and watched people come in.
So
It was great.
And like, there's the part of me that's got my horns twisted that wants to ask people, like, you know, why they're here.
Right.
You know, when they heard about the band.
This Eaglemania?
Yes.
And how'd you find out about it?
Girlfriend. It's a girls' night out.
Right, awesome. Awesome. You never seen them before?
No, it'll be my first time. Yeah.
Awesome.
Desperado. I like that one.
Take it easy. What's that song?
That's not deep, is it?
Which one?
Take it easy.
Take it easy, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an incredible movie. And it looks like we're going to have pretty much a capacity crowd, and that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
As I've said before, we aren't really keen on openers, but Meg and Ray did a fantastic job at getting the crowd warmed up, and it was a nice opportunity to check out the room's acoustics with people in it. Believe it or not, it makes a huge difference.
You can't hide your lying eyes.
The transition between Witchy Woman and Peaceful, don't go into it so quickly. I'm still putting my guitar on and
Take more time.
Just give me like another 5 seconds.
Kalamazoo, some of Grand Rapids, which is north of us, the surrounding areas, Battle Creek, South Bend, Benton Harbor, St. Joe. It depends on the band as far as how far people would drive. I remember one specific show that we were the only Michigan stop. We had people who flew in from Alaska and New York and all over the place. But generally, you know, the Southwest Michigan area.
Conditions the next morning were following the forecast nicely. Both ends of the next leg were VFR, and they were forecast to stay that way until some crud started moving into western Michigan in the late afternoon. This was due to a low pressure area over Iowa that was going to move across the area over the course of the day. In the meantime, you can see the coastal low near Georgia that was going to impact my flight to New Jersey the next day. As an aside, here are the MavMoss forecast graphics for the next morning. It really didn't look great for the Northeast, and I started preparing for the possibilities over the course of the day. The current icing, NEXRAD, and turbulence observations all suggested I leave on the earlier side, so I aimed for a 10:30 a.m. local departure from Kalamazoo. Here's the for-flight expected routing at flight level 250, which didn't leave much to complain about. Again, same audio issues. I'm not going to belabor this flight either, so I can save some time and really focus on and demonstrate the last flight of the trip, which was the interesting one.
Cleveland Center, Meridian 929 Delta Alpha, flight level 250, PD 240.
Meridian 929 Delta Alpha, Cleveland Center, welcome. Send out at 230, then cross 20 miles west Elwood City at maintain 12,000. Pittsburgh altimeter 3012.
Okay, 230 for now, and 12 miles this side of Elwood City at 12,000, 3012, 9 Delta Alpha.
20 west as well.
Sorry, 20 west of Elwood City for 9 Delta Alpha. All right.
Frontier 2430, contact Cleveland, approach 124.
That's a lot of information. 230, so let's go down. Down there, right? Then he wants us 20 miles side.
Air 53 Sierra, clear direct Watson, thank you.
12,000. Pittsburgh approach, Meridian 929 Delta Alpha's flight level 18.5 descending to cross 20 miles this side of Elwood City at 12,000.
929 Delta Alpha, pit approach, Pittsburgh altimeter 3010. Expect lower east of Elwood City.
3010, 9 Delta Alpha.
Good.
Try to become friends with everybody on the staff quick, so I get what I want, hopefully. And then I try to get everything in quick because it's cold out, so we try to get it all in, and then we uncase it. And then it's get the rugs laid out as fast as possible, because that's the outline of the stage, and then it just goes from there. I tell the house what I need, they start on that, I do what I do, we meet in the middle, and that's how shows happen.
So since I've already covered the Lamp Theater in another episode, I think it was episode 2, I'm going to use this segment to follow our chief of production and front of house expert, Dan Seeth. I'm often asked how we get our gear set up and dealt with at these shows, especially since I can't fly with it all. And the answer, in large part, is Dan Seeth.
Dan is one of these guys that brings something to the band as much as any of us do up on stage. He makes everything work. It's hard to define this. I mean, the band can be the best band in the world up on stage. They can be polished musicians, they can have their parts down to perfection. But if that message doesn't make it out through the speakers, out into the crowd, it's for naught. It's like hollering in an empty canyon. So this guy makes us sound the way we sound. And he sits on the soundboard and just polishes every little bit. And he, as much as any of us, practices every show. He knows where the cues are, he knows what certain things have to be done, and it gives us a uniform quality from place to place. He also is able to adapt to each room, because each room is different. There's big rooms, little rooms. He never fails. He never fails. It's just easy.
We carry our own monitors, our own mics, and we just need certain things from the house, like stands and cabling that's just too heavy and tedious to carry, and every place has it already. So we give them everything that we provide, and then I mix it out there while the band mixes themselves through the rack that we're sending everything into before it splits to me.
Dan oversees coordinating our other crew, load in, load out, setup, troubleshooting, and most importantly, how we sound. He's the man behind the faders at most of our shows. And I say most because he runs his own sound and backline company in New Jersey, and occasionally he can't take the time away from it, in which case our friend Miguel Rodriguez will sub for him. These 2 shows were a perfect way to illustrate Dan's brilliance, because the 2 rooms were so vastly different. The State was a 1,500-seat capacious old theater, whereas the Lamp was about a third of that size and much more intimate.
Volume's important. You got to find a sweet spot between it's loud enough and it's not too loud. So that's ideal. I like to start with drums. I like to have a nice drum presence, and then we'll work around that. So kick and snare are real important. Once those are in a good spot, we bring your bass, and then vocals are just going to be on top of everything. So, you sprinkle a little effects here and there, but not too much. It's an interesting mix, because you'll have a lead singer singing lead, and he's on top, and then all the other guys will come in, and all of a sudden he's not on top anymore. Everybody's on top. Some people go, I don't hear the lead singer. I'm like, I don't care. You want to hear everybody. Right. You want to hear 5 guys singing at once, and that's the way it works. So then they stop, and then the lead singer's still there. Right. So that's my approach, especially with the Eagles stuff. It's vocal heavy, and it's everyone's vocals matter.
As important as the drummer, the guitar player, lead vocalist, the critical part of the team.
Right.
Without him, it's inconsistent.
Right.
It could be, God only knows what it's going to sound like out front with a house sound man or a different sound guy every night. You need a guy who knows the show, who knows the cues, who knows the effects, who knows everything about what we do, who does what within the band.
Right.
So Dan is the best we've ever had.
Yeah.
And that's not knocking anybody else, because the guys we've had have all been really good.
Right.
But Dan cares about what he does. It's an art to him.
Right.
He takes pride in it.
Right.
And he's the man. Dan the man.
So much so that he researches his part, the blend and the overall sound, in the same way we all research our own parts, by listening to the Eagles recordings over and over and over again. He's able to pick out subtleties in our performance that we aren't even aware of, and he gives us valuable feedback.
It's November, so it is November, so it's been 2 complete years.
And how did you learn to get so good at what you do?
Well, I've been doing this for 19 years.
Right, so how did it all start?
Well, not every little kid wants to be a sound guy when they're growing up, so I wanted to be a drummer, rock star, did that for a little while, and then everyone had band practice in my house, so I started having the gear, and other people started calling me to do sound for them. I started making money with that, got audited by the Fed, forced me to start an LLC, and now I do this. The business provides equipment and staff for concerts and events that have sound and lighting, staging, video, those types of things, pipe and drape, sandbags, generator, mobile power, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So anything that's either event or concert related, we try to handle that kind of stuff.
Right. About
Trying to create a production rehearsal space where bands and their production crew can come together like a venue, but not in a venue, so they can practice and rehearse and then take that entire thing that they've created and send it out the road. So every show in every venue is the same. So, you know, the same band, same set list, same lighting cue, same sound, every town they go to. Every town gets the same experience.
The other thing about Dan, and I hope that this is pretty apparent, is that he's a true gentleman, a sweet friend, a great hang, and all in all, a great bandmate.
He is the 7th band member.
I'm going to change my answer. The first thing you do when you get to a gig is find hospitality. And then you ask them, what kind of beverage do they have? And then you start loading in.
Now for the interesting flying. Fortunately, I got good audio throughout this one. I knew from the night before that Monday morning's return to New Jersey was going to be a challenge. My two concerns were icing and ceilings. Originally, I aimed for a 9 a.m. departure. Caldwell is served by two approaches in this circumstance. The RNAV to 22, which is an LPV approach with minima of 460 feet or 290 feet AGL, and the RNAV to 4, which is an LP approach with minima of 620 MSL or 450 AGL. The key in the case of the ceilings on this flight would be how much the current conditions follow the forecast and the degree to which the winds affect the runway use. I would much rather use the LPV approach, which supplies good vertical guidance, rather than the non-precision approach to 4, but I may not have a choice given the winds. Okay, I want to point out an important mistake I made that I noticed after I had edited this episode. LPV, LP, and LNAV approaches are all RNAV approaches and are all technically non-precision, even though the LPV approach has minima and behaves very similar to an ILS, which is a precision approach. You'll hear me make this mistake a bunch in the upcoming segment, and I needed to point this out before I started getting comments. Okay, on with the show. The next morning, METARs were VFR at Latrobe, but down to 701.5 at Caldwell with calm winds. This wasn't a surprise, as it was consistent with the forecast the night before, which called for improvement to marginal VFR conditions over the course of the morning. Latrobe was calling for VFR all day, but Teterboro was calling for IFR with improvement to marginal conditions by the time of my departure from Latrobe, and was basically forecast to stay that way throughout the afternoon, but with winds favoring the non-precision approach. This was all due to a strong coastal low, which was well offshore, but which had brought a lot of moisture to the northeast. And you could see on the graphical TAF how this was affecting everything east of my origin over the course of the morning. The SIPVIP was calling for trace to moderate icing at the lower altitudes along my route, but sparing eastern New Jersey. Here, the issue would be how early New York Center decided to descend me. The freeze level chart depicted this nicely with a steep gradient to the east, which made me much less concerned about having to fly an approach in icing conditions. I found the infrared satellite useful here in that I could tell that the tops of the clouds were low and warm and not in freezing conditions. The NextRad really wasn't painting much, and the turbulence forecast was pretty much non-contributory. And finally, pilot reports were a mixed bag. An A320 was reporting ceilings of 400 feet in Newark, whereas a Citation had reported a ceiling of 900 feet in Morristown, about 5 miles from Caldwell. At least there were no reports of icing. So I went ahead and filed for 9 a.m., fully expecting to delay that to see if there would be any improvement in the current conditions and to monitor how the METARs lined up with the forecast. As far as finding an alternate, the closest ILS was Teterboro, but the forecast was below their alternate minima. In fact, looking back at the graphical TAF, that was true for just about everything east of Latrobe, so my listed alternate was Latrobe itself, as I had plenty of fuel to go round trip and fly for at least another hour. Sitting here waiting for the weather to clear a little bit over at Caldwell, where it's about 700 over. Here's what the METARs looked like when I decided to launch. It was encouraging to see some ceiling variability, the continued calm winds, and surrounding airports which all had ceilings that were higher than the minima for the non-precision approach. The TAF for Teterboro had, of course, changed to reflect the persistent low ceilings. This was of more concern because it meant that the forecasted time for the low ceilings to clear was not reliable. On the other hand, as long as the ceilings were low, the winds were calm and favoring the precision approach. I decided to launch around 10:30.
929 Delta Alpha clearance, clear to Caldwell Airport as filed. Maintain 5,000, expect flight level 250 in Mooney, and maintain Johnstown frequency 121.2, squawk 7230.
Okay, Meridian 929 Delta Alpha. It's cleared to Caldwell as filed, 5,000, 25010, 121.2, 7230, 9 Delta Alpha.
9 Delta Alpha, I understand Meridian, thank you. And Rebec is correct. 24, proceed on course, maintain 6,000, clear for takeoff.
On course 6,000, clear for takeoff, 9 Delta Alpha. Okay, got 60 knots.
Meridian 929 Delta Alpha, contact Johnstown departure, good day.
Departure 9 Delta Alpha, so long. Johnstown departure, Meridian 929 Delta Alpha, 2,000 climbing, 6,000 turning left, direct to Allentown.
Meridian 929 Delta Alpha, Johnstown approach, ident, Johnstown altimeter 2977.
977, 9 Delta Alpha.
Meridian 9 Delta Alpha, radar contact 2 miles southwest of the Latrobe Airport.
2085, visibility 2, miss, ceiling 600 overcast, temperature 3, dew point 3, altimeter 2987, on F4, approaching use, landing runway 4. As this weather information is available on Highwall Flight Service frequencies, North Stairman Crane, 0.980.
We're at our cruise altitude at 25,000 feet, and the current weather, as you just heard, is 602, which is 150 above minimums for RNF4, which is what they're advertising using. And, yeah.
Temperature.
November 929 Delta Alpha to try to maintain flight level 190.
Flight level 190, 9 Delta Alpha. In Caldwell, and they're advertising the RNAV to 4 because the winds are 020 at 5.
3,000.
3,000, 9 Delta Alpha. The winds are only 020 at 5, which means that that's almost considered calm. So instead, the controller gave me a fix on the RNAV to 22, which is an LPV approach, which has a 250-foot minima. So that's much better. Plus, it's a precision approach, meaning that it gives you vertical as well as lateral guidance. Yeah, it's all good. They may change that. Like, we're waiting for the hourly weather report to come out at Caldwell. And they're 2 minutes late right now. I'm just sitting here, I've been listening to the ATIS for the last half hour. Waiting, and they just haven't updated it. So if the winds pick up, then they're going to bring us around to do the RNAV to 4.
For 6,000, uniform.
Crane, 0.98 nautical miles northeast at the approach of the runway 22, 344 feet MSL.
Right. The audio crapped out right about the time that I was briefing the approach for the LPV to runway 22 at Caldwell. Just know that I briefed it, and I'm going to fast forward now to once I was already vectored onto the approach.
9 Delta Alpha, you're over Lady, you're cleared the RNAV to 22.
Okay, clear for the approach, 9 Delta Alpha.
Flight Jet 518, turn left 180, maintain 3000.
Left 180 down to 3000, Flight Jet 518. Approach, good morning, this is 618, 6000, we got India down there.
Flight Jet 618, thanks for India, ILS 23, Morristown, altimeter 2982.
See a virtual, you'll see in a second, little virtual
tower, 19
runway.
Yeah, tower 195 decently, 210 for full Mike Tango.
You can go 180.
180 full Mike Tango, thanks.
Top route 15, 2000, Phil Savage, cleared ILS runway 6, best forward speed.
Down to Savage, cleared the ILS 6.
Okay.
Oscar 13530, wind 0.
9 Delta Alpha, radar service terminates, contact Caldwell Tower 119.8.
Okay, tower 9 Delta Alpha, so on.
Temperature 3.
You can switch over. And call tower Meridian 929 Delta Alpha is outside fare.
Meridian 929 Delta Alpha, Caldwell Tower, wind 030 at 5, runway 22, clear to land.
Little land 229 Delta Alpha.
Meridian 9 Delta Alpha, ceilings were reported about 30 minutes ago at 500 feet.
Thank you, 9 Delta Alpha. All right. Oh, glide path's alive. And just like we always do, when it crosses the little line, up the gear and start configuring. Right, so we now see that the autopilot has captured the glide path. We're gonna go gear, use the flaps, manual, and just dial back the power a little bit. Right, and we're below flaps 2. So we can add another notch of flaps. All right, our minima are at 460. We should break out at around 700. See ground. About 500 to go. 100 to go.
$500.
Hey, runway in sight. Cool.
Wind 360 at 6.
Thank you. Okay. Cool, flaps, good gear. See how you could get distracted?
Minimums.
Oh, absolutely. A little bit of a tailwind. I'm fast. So we're gonna use this whole runway. Here's what's next on Life in the Fast Lane. It's February, and we had 3 Eaglemania shows to do in 2 northeastern states. Each leg had its own flying challenges, in some cases leading to some changes in plans. But the show and other rituals must go on. It's another episode of Life in the Fast Lane.